Yo, what is going on, everybody? It's your boy Aaron B, and welcome to Tacos and Touchdown Live. And I got my host, Shane Carter, in the building. How's it going, Shane? Oh, I can't hear you.
Sorry about that. It's going real good. How y'all doing?
Doing pretty good. Yes, sir. So, we got a show for y'all today. We're going to be talking about Kelvin Joseph at nickel, and then we got left guard. Who's going to be our left guard at first? And cap space and roster battles. So, let's get into. Let me see if I can find that brand. Before we get into it, we got to give a shout out to our sponsor, What a Clean Solution. If you're out in San Antonio, need your carpets clean, and if you need your in your car, anything like that interior work, give What a Clean's a call, and you get 5% off with that TNT, and you'll see it at the bottom of the ticker. TNT, get you 5% off your next purchase. So let's get into our first thing is I'm struggling a little bit, but it's all good. I got the banner up. Let's get into our June 1st cuts. So we got, like you were saying, like we were talking about, we're talking about our Cowboys cap space. We have 20 million cap space to work with. So what are some things you think we could look at in the when it comes to Cowboy cap space?
All right, so I know everyone immediately wants to talk about DeAndre Hopkins and Dalvin Cook. We kind of touched on them last week. You and I both agree that D Hop would be the more impactful sign, and Dalvin Cook would make the most sense. But let's put that to the side for a second,
Yeah.
and let's talk about some in-house players. Michael Parsons, he's going into his third year, and at the end of the year, he would be eligible for an extension. But they would probably want to wait on that one because they have really three or four priority free agents coming up this year they want to look at. CeeDee Lamb, who they sold the fifth-year option, Trayvon Diggs, Tyler Biadasz, and Terrence Steele. Now, we've been hearing all kinds of stuff like who would get the priority sign and who would get signed at training camp because coming into training camp, and you know this, we see it every year, that training camp is where these deals usually get done. Mm. And if I'm the Cowboys, to me right now, the priority sign is going to be Trayvon Diggs because I can wait a year on CeeDee Lamb, especially with when the salary cap is supposed to go up again next year. I think Terrence Steele, this might be like a bargaining thing if they don't sign him right away, especially if he ain't ready to play right out the gate. I don't know if he's even going to be cleared to start right away. Biadasz's deal won't be as expensive as Terrence Steele's is more than likely because the starting center price is going to be less than the starting offensive tackle. Trayvon Diggs, though, is going to command somewhere, and I think you pull the numbers up if you want to, somewhere between $20 and $23 million a year just based on what the top 5 to 10 cornerbacks are making in the NFL. Now the cornerback market ain't the same as quarterback, whereas like the next guy up gets paid. It's always based on who you are, what you've done, and who you're compared to. Trayvon Diggs is a two-time All-Pro, two-time Pro Bowler, interception leader, has 14 interceptions in the combined the last 2 seasons. They let Byron Jones walk in free agency because they wanted someone who would create turnovers. They decided that coverage, while great, they wanted someone who could turn the ball over. And no one in the last 2 years has done that more than Trayvon Diggs. He has created and caused more turnovers than any other defender in the NFL. And you can look at the numbers. It's him. So if they were letting him walk, that would make no sense to me, at least me personally. And I think this year, especially if you want to avoid signing him and Lamb in the same offseason, and they can spread the cap hit out over a couple years. If you sign Trayvon Diggs this year, they have 20 mil, so they could probably absorb like a smaller hit in year one, prorate it into a signing bonus going on, and then they can move that hit down the line. I think his deal is probably going to be somewhere between 4 and 5 years, if I had to guess. Let's just say estimate 4 years, 21 mil a year, so 84 with a guarantee of I think at least 40, 45, give or take. I don't have the top contracts up in front of me, but that's where my focus would be.
Yeah, I agree. I actually looked up some numbers before we started the show on market value. I think I don't think it's not accurate. They said 15.4, but that's low for Trayvon's caliber. But they were saying a 4-year contract, about 61.8 million. And I agree that you need to sign a guy like Trayvon Diggs because I can't think of the last time we had a corner of that caliber on this team. You know, you had your Terrence Newmans, your Byron Jones, but you haven't had a corner like him. And you let a guy like that go in that free agency, you're gonna see some of the best teams out there trying to get that top tier corner. And it's like sign him now while you still have the chance. And you can sign CeeDee Lamb next year. And I want to add on to it. If I know Stephen Jones and them love to save money, what they can do is extend Dax to a 5-year extension. And shout out to KD Drummond. I actually looked at this is where I got this from, where you could do a 5-year extension for $255 million, and then you save 18.5 next year in cap space. So you can always extend him, and then you can get the free agency. Are there like any outside free agents that you're looking at that are like that could possibly be there, or they're there right now that you want to look?
First, I want to touch on what you said about KD Drummond, and he's one of the best sources. I loved having him on the show. I told him we try to have him on again, but it's always about like timing and make sure you get the right guys, right people for the right shows. I have a long list of people. You know I do. I've told you about this. A long list of people who want to be on the show, who want to talk with us. And so that's why a lot of times we'll have 2 guests on to try and like lower the number a little bit. Because I think 4 guests is probably fine. If you try and go 5, it gets a little muddy.
Yeah.
But I agree with you, especially if they open up $18 million just on this year alone. That brings up just about 40 mil, just under 40 mil for the season. They would open up next year, I think, with an extra 10 million based on how they spread out. And then the cap is supposed to go up again, I think another 25 million next year. Mm-hmm. And again, this is all estimation. I'm sure that number is going to change by the time we get to October or something like that. But as far as outside free agents, if we ignore Hopkins, if we ignore Dalvin Cook, you're asking just another outside free agent, someone we ain't really thinking of. You know, my initial thought was someone like Dalton Reisner. I think he's the best interior offensive lineman free agent available. He's only 27, is a really good pass blocker. Not great in the running game, especially because and we'll talk about this later on. The Cowboys have a 3-man race right now for left guard because it looks like Terrence Steele ain't going to be ready to start, at least not camp. They have Tyler Smith and Tyron Smith as your tackles, and we've seen 3 different guys play with the first team at left guard. So I would wonder if they would go the veteran route there. But really, if you're talking about a free agent that I would really, really like, they don't have to spend a lot to get a kicker. I would wonder if they try someone like a Yannick Ngakoue, see what he's like. I know health's an issue. Jadeveon Clowney intrigues me, but not as a pass rusher, but as like a run defender. He's always been a much better run defender than he has been a pass blocker. I would be interested to see what kind of linebackers are available just because I think we have good starters. I would like some depth at linebacker potentially. But right now, I don't really know if there's a player available right now outside of DeAndre Hopkins because Dalvin Cook hadn't been released yet. Yeah. If there's really someone else out there the Cowboys should just jump on, right? Like you said, if they restructured Dak's contract, they would open up just under 40 mil. But if they wanted to, and I'm okay with this, if they went ahead and signed Lamb and Diggs to this offseason right away because they're both eligible, or if they want to sign Biotish, or whatever they want to do, they have the money for it now. But as far as outside free agents, I don't really see any right now that just jump out of me.
All right, I definitely see where you're coming from. You're speaking of linebackers. I actually looked up one linebacker who's actually had one of his best career seasons, and he came in the same draft as Leighton Vander Esch, and that's Rashad Evans, who just came off played all 17 games at 159 tackles. 86 solo tackles. He could be a possible guy if you're like you want Clark to still develop into being a starting linebacker. I know he's getting the first team.
I wonder about health because a player who's that productive, they ain't free agents for no reason. Yeah, I wonder about health and a linebacker. You know, the shelf life for a linebacker is kind of like that at running back because linebackers make more tackles than anybody else on the field. They are usually the leading tacklers, so they make a lot of contact. The offensive linemen, defensive linemen are built for that, and that's why they can play 10-plus years. The linebackers are usually about like 6 to 8 years. And Rashad Evans, I think this would be his 6th year if I'm doing the math right.
Yeah.
And so even if he's just like as a year one starter, like a depth piece, whatever you want to say, I think he's probably better than what they brought Anthony Barr in for last year. I would wonder though, like if Damone Clark, Jabril Cox, DeMarvin Overshown, you know, the guys they have, Jaron Kearse, who really is kind of like a linebacker in and of itself. I wonder if they're really okay with the depth they got, just because they don't run a whole lot of 3 linebacker looks, not a lot of true three linebacker looks. So I do wonder if that has something to do with it. But I like the idea of at least like, you know, maybe a camp invite.
Yeah, it just and another guy we're going back to guard is one guy that is a Trey Turner who's excellent when it comes to the run game. I actually got some notes on him, like plays with an edge type of guy, a veteran present who I read that it was a good teammate to have on the team as well, and he's solid in the passing game. The only problem is mainly been a right guard his career. It's just if you want to sign him, you better sign him now, and he's at and his market value is about a 2.6, kind of in that what's it called, that bargain base range that kind of you're looking at. But I wouldn't mind a Dalton Reisner as a left guard. I just know the price is maybe a little too high for them. But I think him being on the market for a while, I think that number will drop a little bit. You may get into that range where okay, we'll sign him. It's like we're gonna get into left guards in a little bit, so I'm not gonna go too deep into it. But I know our next topic is Kelvin Joseph at nickel. So, what are your thoughts of Kelvin Joseph at nickel? Is this his last chance on this team, or are we overthinking it?
I think it's got to be his last chance, just because the Cowboys right now are so deep at defensive back. I'm going to list off all the guys who I expect to make the roster. Right, and go and keep a finger up for every name I say. Okay.
Okay.
So Trayvon Diggs, Deron Bland, Jordan Lewis, Stephon Gilmore, Jaron Curse, Donovan Wilson, Ezra Mukwamu, Malik Hooker, Marquise Bell, and then a 10th player. All right, and let's just say C.J. Goodwin is no longer the special teams ace. Maybe they like someone like Devin Harper. Maybe they like Sean McEwen to be that guy.
Yeah.
Realistically, the Cowboys are going to keep like 10, maybe 11 defensive backs. Okay. Not only is it, I think Kelvin Joseph's last opportunity, I really do think it also is Nishan Wright's last opportunity on this team, just because the Cowboys right now are so deep at cornerback. And at defensive back in general, they love to run multi defensive back looks. They drafted Eric Scott at Cincinnati. I actually like the undrafted kid Miles Brooks out of Louisiana Tech better. Right. I think I touched on him a few shows back when we talked about the draft picks and all that. Mm-hmm. Miles Brooks, if he doesn't have anything, he has ball skills, and that's something that a lot of these cornerbacks they have now have ball skills, and that's something that Dan Quinn and the secondary is starting to covet, is the guys who can create turnovers. Kelvin Joseph was never the turnover guy at Kentucky. He was a good coverage guy, but he played a lot better in space. A lot of his best plays were made in space. That's why, as a rookie, I made the suggestion that he should play maybe as a safety, maybe as like a sub-nickel safety. Now that here they are, year 3, they're trying to get some use out of him, trying to see like, okay, we can't possibly have wasted the second-round pick. Maybe he's a safety. Not realizing that their 6th-round pick, Arizona Mukwamu, so far up to this point has been a better player. And that's crazy to think about. That in that draft, the 2021 draft, it's been Micah Parsons, and then the next good play, and then they had 2 defensive linemen, Osa Odighizuwa, Chauncey Golson, and then nobody for a while, and then Ezra Mukwamu. You know, Quentin Bohannon is to be decided, Matt Farniok's to be decided, but right now, like, if it wasn't for Micah Parsons, that draft would have looked really, really underwhelming. Yeah, and Kelvin Joseph so far has been one of the most disappointing draft picks in recent memory. He's only a 2nd-round pick, but people had a 1st-round grade on him, and being picked at 44 overall, I believe it was. That's essentially a 1st-round pick range, because it means you were just outside that top 32. So not only do I think this is his last opportunity, but you have to wonder if he underwhelms, is he even worth the trouble? He's been more talked about for the things he ain't doing, even if you count the off the field stuff and the stuff he is doing.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is his last point, and you got like you were saying, we counted down. There's 9 defensive backs we know that are almost solidified to be on the team this year, and his that 10th spot is when it comes to like Nashawn and Kelvin. Kelvin, yeah, he did special team work later in the season, but you're looking at a 2nd-round pick. You will expect him to be at least the 2nd string corner, like, just in case of when your corners is down. That's at the minimum when you're looking at a 2nd-round pick. And he hasn't been there. He is like, you see some spurts here and there, but you're not seeing consistency. And they, like, when it comes to Cowboys, they love to covet those day 1 and day 2 picks, even though they're not playing up to par. And this is his last chance. He's got to take advantage of it. Like, he get an opportunity to play nickel, but you got like 3 other guys that could play nickel as well. You know, Izzy could play against big slot corners, and you know Jordan Lewis, who's been a solid deep nickel corner, who can play a little bit of outside as well. It's just as long as he's healthy, Jordan Lewis plays. Like I hear a lot of people saying, "What if Kelvin Joseph plays well and Jay Lou plays well? You got to get rid of one." At this state, I would keep both of them because last year we were going through guys like Xavier Rose, Trayvon Mullins. It's like you always want to have a plethora of good corners. Like if Jordan if Joseph steps up, I'm keeping Lewis as well. I want 5 really good corners on this team.
I think if the Cowboys really did decide, okay, we're only keeping one of these guys, Kelvin Joseph, Jordan Lewis. Since you brought the topic,
yeah,
releasing Jordan Lewis would make sense because you can save more cap space.
Yeah,
getting rid of Kelvin Joseph makes more sense because he's been underwhelming up to this point in his career. He had a few moments where like, oh, he's really good, and that was the end of his rookie year when he finally got on the field. He was underwhelming last year, even as a special teams player. Like he started off well as a special teams player at the start of the season and kind of petered out towards the end. Jordan Lewis has been a consistently good starter for them since he came out in the draft. He's been one of their best draft picks the last couple of years that people don't really talk about because they have so many all pros, but he's been a real reliable starter. I'm heartbroken because he blocked me on Twitter, and I don't know why because I've never had a bad thing to say about Jordan Lewis. Yeah, I know. I had to look it up. I was like, why can't I find him? And I typed up his handle. And sure enough, it says this account is blocked, and I don't know what I did. But I wish nothing but the best. But I think between the two of them, I would keep Lewis just for I think he's the better player. If they both played well or they both played bad, and I had to keep one. Then on the business side, it makes sense to get rid of Lewis just for cap savings. Yeah. But in terms of overall play, nothing up to this point indicates that Lewis ain't been the better player, right?
Yeah, because I know Jordan Lewis is between 5 to 6 or $1 million for in the cap space. It's a good chunk, but it's not like overwhelming. Like if you're like okay, Kelvin Joseph is good and then he's good, you'll be fine. But I'm just like I want to keep that depth on when it comes to corners. I didn't see where we had some signings. I'm like, okay, he's not CB2 or like CB4 type of guy. But our next topic is we got into a little bit in the first topic is left guard. Who in the world is our left guard for the Dallas Cowboys? That's kind of the big question. We know Matt Farniok has been getting was getting first team reps. He majority has been a center for us, a depth piece, and you can go into the numbers. He's not like he's gotten better over time, but he hasn't been like the guy like okay, he's a solidified starter. And then we got Udoga, we got Asim Richards, T.J. Bass. But I want to get your opinion. What do you think about our left guard situation right now?
First of all, I appreciate the TJ Bass love. I know I mentioned him once. I think he's more of a developmental player. I like his potential. They even tried Josh Ball at left guard, and I'm wondering like he ain't had the build for it. If he has the build for tackle, and he ain't good at tackle. He's just not a good player. Let's call a spade a spade. He ain't a good player. Like you said, it's come down to Udoga, Farniok, and Asim Richards, and there's no reason why all three of them shouldn't make the team. As far as the starter goes, assuming Terrence Steele doesn't start the season, who's left guard? Experience tells you Chuma Udoga, who I actually liked. He was a trade target for them from the Jets. He would make sense as the plug-and-play starter. For upside, I don't see why Matt Farniok shouldn't give it more of a shot because last year when he filled in at left guard, you saw he showed a lot of power in the running game, had his faults in the passing game. That was his thing. He didn't really have as good a play in pass protection. Now, Asim Richards, he has the upside as a pass protection, not so much as a run blocker, as a rookie. He's a 5th-round rookie, but it doesn't happen a lot, okay? But it would be the second time the Cowboys have had a day 3 draft pick in the last 3 years go out and become a starter for them. Three if you count the undrafted free agent with Terrence Steele, but the other guy I was mentioning was Tyler Biadasz, who was taken the last pick of the 4th round. And he's become their franchise center. And so if they find that value in the 5th round, then at that point, I will never question what McClay does. I mean, I've learned to question him less and less. Just every time I'm like, oh, I don't know about that player. I don't know about that player. Are you sure about that? If they found their future left guard in Asim Richards in the 5th round, I won't say I will never ever question them again. Like even if it turns out to be a bad player, I won't question them because they know what they're doing. I think right now, and I think you might disagree. I think Udoga would make the most sense as a starter. I really want to give Farniok the opportunity because I thought he did well last year. I think it's really going to come down to those two. And I think Richards right now is probably going to be more like the developmental backup. Adoga I think should get the primary or priority first team snaps, but Farniok I think is going to get him run for his money. But I think you might be thinking the other way around.
When I look at it, I see Farniok's going to get most of the reps just because of seniority over the guys he's been on the team longer. But I think looking at a film, I remember when he was playing, Udoka was playing for the Falcons. I see him getting to the second level. I'm like, okay, that's what you look for in the zone blocking scheme. And I was always questioning, is Udoka a good pickup? And then I didn't see it when it came to tackle, but as a guard, he could be solid. At this point, you're looking for at least a solid guard. I'm not looking for an all-pro because all those all-pro guys, they're on teams. And if you want one, you're going to have to trade some draft capital. And at this point, nobody's trying to get rid of a good guard. So I wouldn't mind Udoka at left guard if we just like, we're not going to get an outside free agent. I'll sleep well at night if we got left tackle Tyler Smith. And in a few weeks during the season, we got Terrence Steele. I'm fine with Udoka at left guard. And Biotis is definitely turned out to be. And you don't have to say Zach Martin's the best guard in NFL. Everybody says that. So
I wonder how much Richards actually factors into the competition. It's OTAs. It's in shell. It's just helmets and shirts. They ain't gonna go full contact until they get out to Oxnard. Yeah. I wonder like how much they're gonna give him the opportunity, just because I think the Cowboys would rather go the veteran route. I know they won't turn him away. If he's the best player, you played the best player, right? Mm-hmm. I wonder if Farniok and Udoka won't get the majority of the reps just out of principle. Like if they would rather, even if Richards is the best player at the position, like if they would rather just redshirt him. I don't know why they would do that. I feel like they'd rather play the best five. But I feel like I don't know if they're really keen on playing a fifth round rookie right out the gate. I know a few years back they did that with Terrence Steele at right tackle, who was an undrafted free agent, but that was out of necessity. And so it's one of the things that I go back and forth with because Mike McCarthy and the coach staff, they're a good coach staff. We can say what we want about like Mike McCarthy, whether you like it or not, but they've been around the block enough. They've seen players in development. I wonder even if Richards was the best player, if they wouldn't rather let a veteran play, let a veteran start to start the season. Maybe as like a mental thing. It's like, hey, yeah, you won the battle in camp, but we're gonna give it to this other guy.
I can see that.
Yeah, I mean, it's mental manipulation, but I don't know. I might be higher on a Sim Richards than some other people. I don't think he'll be an all pro. I mean, I hope he is. I don't know if he'll be an all pro. I like his potential in pass protection. His run blocking is what concerns me. Is that the Cowboys really want to run the ball more? It would make sense that even if he was the better pass protection option, he wouldn't be the starter. That's why I think Farniok would get more of an edge because he's a really good run blocker.
Yeah, because they emphasize in almost every interview with Mike McCarthy and everything is they want to run the ball. And I think honestly, Mike Solari's been in the league for a long time. He was an assistant coach for Tom Landry. And coaches, they're old school coaches. They're all about trying to see what you're going to do in certain situations. Like, okay, how do you feel if you're going to be the second or third string left guard and you got to be behind Udoka or Farniok? And I think, honestly, it'll probably boil down to Farniok start until further notice. But I think you actually brought up a point. I was thinking to myself, what if they redshirt a guy like a Sim Richards for a year or so? They say, oh, he's down, like, what they did with Let's Go. He had a shoulder injury, but couldn't come back until he was redshirted for the whole year. You could be in that situation.
Well, Let's Go is going to be interesting, especially if they don't re-sign Terrence Steele, because Let's Go was the better of the tackles between him and Josh Ball last year. And if he doesn't get hurt, I would imagine that he would have been, the preferred option to play as opposed to Josh Ball. Josh Ball was bad. Let's just be real. He was bad. Yeah. Well, Let's Go wasn't anything to write home about, but in preseason, and I don't know how you feel, I thought Let's Go was the better player.
He was, and even watching Josh Ball's film, I wasn't impressed when he was at Marshall. I just seen another 6'8", 320 guy, just big.
Use
And
his length.
yeah, it's just like I'm not a huge fan of like those super tall tackles that are just he's just big. I won't, if you can give me a solid one that can play that's like 6'5" or 6'4",
Yeah.
that's got good footwork and power, I'll choose that over those big mountain guys that teams usually pick because of their size.
I just realized this is a good transition into our last topic.
Yeah, because our last one is roster battles, and we got a few roster battles, but we're going to talk about the underrated roster battles, and I'm gonna let you go because I know it's hot on your mind right now.
Well, we already talked about tackles, so let's get offensive tackle out of here. Let's get left guard out of here. Let's get kicker out of here. We don't know who the kick. I'll believe it when I see it that Tristan Vizcaino is the kicker. Sorry, I can't never pronounce his name.
Oh, no worries.
But I really do wonder about the starting defensive tackles. Because right now it would make sense for Osa Odighizuwa to be the starting 3-tech and Jonathan Hankins, the vet, to be the starting nose tackle. But they drafted Mozzie Smith in the first round. And Mozzie Smith, who can play both the 3 and the 1, he's a better run defender than Osa Odighizuwa, but not a better pass rusher. Now he is a better pass rusher than Jonathan Hankins, but not necessarily a better run defender just yet. He has the upside to be both. He has the upside for both. And then you look at the backup defensive tackles. Right now, Chauncey Golston to me would be the 4th option. I think he's probably going to be a full-time defensive tackle. I think Junior Fehoko, they'll probably play him a little bit at edge, but they put on some weight to almost about 270, so it wouldn't surprise me if he plays inside a little bit because he has like the Chauncey Golston kind of abilities where he can play really, really good against the run. But Chauncey Golston, I think, has more upside as a pass rusher from the inside than on the outside. So I do wonder the depth there and maybe who the starter is going to be. And that's what's been on my mind, especially because right now the only defensive tackle that I could see being a surefire starter is Jonathan Hankins. And that's even with Osa Odighizuwa, who's their best pass rusher on the inside. He might not necessarily be the best option at 3-tech for the first snaps.
Yeah, that is a situation where you got like 3 guys, but you could have, like you were saying, Molly Smith could play 3 or 1 tech. And he looked at it, like he was saying in an interview, he was never really asked to do pass rush things. He would always be in that run stopper. And like that's not limited. Like he's just a run stopper. He was just never asked to be a pass rusher. I like Osa, but it may be in a situation where Osa is that second team or you just have a big rotation. And you got 2 guys, like you're saying, Falco and Golston, that similar build. But I honestly think in like year 2 or 3, you're going to see Falco like full-time. Okay, that's starting to look like defensive tackle. You can see Golston as like that big playing inside and outside type of guy.
Okay, but what's your battle? I have a feeling I know what position you're gonna go with, but what's your roster position battle that no one's really talking about?
We actually talked about it a little bit, and I think it's for that 10th spot is between Nashawn Wright and Kelvin Joseph, because those are 2 guys. One was drafted a little too high, and that's Nashawn Wright.
You ain't gonna give any of the rookies an opportunity. You think it's down to Wright and Joseph?
You know what? I'm gonna add Eric Scott in there and Miles Brooks, and I wouldn't mind one of the UDFAs to step up because I actually looked a little bit at Miles Brooks, a little bit of film, and I liked his.
He got hands. He
does, and I wouldn't. And when it comes to the Cowboys, we love our UDFAs. Some of the greatest Cowboys are UDFAs. And if Miles Brooks or Eric Scott can step up and do a better job than Kelvin Joseph, there ain't going to be complaints on my end. It's just they're fighting for that role. And I would like a Miles Brooks to be in that position. I didn't really know much about when it came to Eric Scott. I like a lot of Cowboy fans. You have to look into his film, like after the draft was over. You say, okay, he got a little bit of ball skills, but Miles Brooks got a little bit more than ball skills. And then I know they love Nashawn Wright because he was 6'4", and then he said I'm going to be the next Richard Sherman, and it haven't got there. And Kelvin Joseph, we drafted him 2nd round. He needs to step up or he got to move on. And it's like, who's going to be in that 10th spot? And it's in between those 4 guys. And I can't wait until training camp where you finally see that.
Do you think Malik Davis or Deuce Vaughn could potentially push Ronald Jones for that second running back spot. Because right now in the depth chart, Ronald Jones is RB2. But I do wonder if they don't prefer Malik Davis, who's got some power, or Deuce Vaughn, who's got so much ability to him, as the second option behind Tony Pollard. I know. Like everyone's talking about Tony Pollard, who's finally coming off injury, but because he's coming off injury, the depth of running backs is going to be key. And so I wonder, because I don't think they're going to keep 4 running backs, not counting Hunter Luepke, the fullback. I think if they keep a fullback, it'll be him. If not, they'll probably go with Sean McEwen as their fullback option. Yeah. But I do wonder if Malik Davis and Deuce Vaughn, either or, push Ronald Jones out.
Because I agree. Because Ronald Jones has kind of been is just a guy we signed, and he has potential, but there's been like you see him really good. Like was it when they went to the Tampa Bay?
He had like 2 good years.
Yeah, 2 good years.
I think he was a camp sign, and I have a hard time believing that right here, right now, he's even better than Malik Davis. But that's just me. I know you. I think you were okay with the sign. I don't know if you were like you loved the sign, but that was also the same day that they traded for Brandon Cooks, so no one was really talking about signing Ronald Jones because they were talking so much about the trade.
Yeah, I think my bad.
No, go ahead.
Oh no, I think it was just a little high because okay, he's a Dallas kid, but when I was watching Malik Davis in preseason, you're like this guy like 5'10", about 200 pounds, and then you see, oh man, he got some power to him. I'm like,
yeah. He's getting 5 yards to carry.
Yeah, it's like you almost could move from Zeke the next year and have him evolve as that power type of running back. And then you got Deuce Vaughn, who you drafted, who has excellent footwork. May not be the fastest guy because he got short legs because he's 5'5", but then he can go out into the backfield in space. It's like Ronald Jones got to step up because Malik Davis been on this team, and that year fade and saying, okay, it's my turn to step up as that running back 2 and may have to play some running back 1 if Pollard's still not fully healthy. And like you're saying, they're not going to have 4 running backs. I could see, honestly, Ronald Jones being on the practice squad just in case one of them go down and they activate him to the roster. But my running back trio would be Pollard, Davis, then Vaughn, and hopefully Hunter Luepke because I'm a big fan of him out of North Dakota State, like a lot of us Cowboy fans, is that I want the fullback back in Dallas. Like every Super Bowl you look at, we always had that fullback. John
Kuhn 2.0. He's Mike McCarthy's new John Kuhn.
Yeah, I like John Kuhn when he played for the Green Bay.
Everyone did. He was the short yardage guy that just. But instead of Kuhn, we'll call it Lou.
Yeah.
For Luepke.
Yes, sir. Like. That we almost gave our 53-man projection team right now almost.
Yeah, let's save that for the summer. That's a summer topic.
Absolutely. So, lastly, NBA Finals will happen in about a few minutes or so. Who are you going with?
Nuggets in 5. Nuggets in 5.
Nuggets in 5.
I love the Heat story. I love Jimmy Butler. I love Jimmy Butler to death. He's a Texas boy just like me. Yeah, I hope one day he wins a championship. I really do. And I think it's ridiculous that people think that just because there's no Warriors, no LeBron, no KD, no Giannis, that this is an unwatchable game. The NBA and fans don't realize that they want parity. They want different teams in the championship every single year. This is the 3rd straight year where there's two different teams in the championship, or actually fourth straight year where there's 2 different teams in the championship, and that's a good thing. It's a good thing that it ain't just predictable who's gonna make the championship. But yeah. Everyone of my friends over at LTB and the DVNR Sports that I met over the draft, like Bree and Zach and Joey and them. I mean, the Broncos. I have a lot of Broncos country fans, and the ones that are also Nuggets fans are happy to know that like the only reason that I won't consider it a sweep is because I think that he could play at least one game play at home. But Nuggets in 5.
Yeah, I got the Nuggets in 6 just because once the NBA it's kind of like that dead period until you get into training camp. Just kind of give me a one more game. I like the Nuggets. Like you're saying,
Nuggets in 5. It'll be done next week. It'll be done next week, and then people will be talking about the NBA draft, and Spurs fans will be going crazy for Wemby, and then we can talk about the preseason, and then it'll start all over again.
Yeah, it could be Game 5. I just want Game 6. That's in my head, but like you're saying, I think it's going to be Game 5. Mm-hmm. I don't see the Nuggets blowing the Heat out because Jimmy Butler's gonna have one of those games where they're like, okay, maybe they got a chance getting back in, but they got some dogs on the Nuggets. You got the Joker, you got Murray, and you got Gordon and some other players on that team. It's like
Contavious Caldwell-Pope.
Oh man, and when he was with the Lakers, he was a valuable piece of that team.
Brown.
Yeah.
Michael Porter Jr. They got bodies, but I love that the super teams ain't winning championships anymore. I love that that's kind of dead. Teams that people are realizing they're like, okay, he's a star, but in order for us to get the star, we lose all these core players, and that just hurts the team. And I think the super team era is kind of dying out a little bit because these core players, they used to take less to play with LeBron, to play with Steph, and now it's like, why am I taking less? Yeah. Why would I take less to help y'all's legacy? And they're trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I'm glad these super teams are kind of going away. It's like you have that really good player, and then you got like two viable starters, and then you got an excellent
bench. You got depth.
Yeah, you got to have depth. That makes NBA fun. But if you see these all these looking like an AU basketball team, that's boring. It's like the backups are like, oh.
And that's why KD will never win another championship.
Yeah, I think him just getting that ring with Golden State. I don't know why. Everybody already predicted
that was Steph's ring. Everyone knows it.
Yeah.
Y'all can find us on Spotify now.
Yes, sir. I almost forgot. Yes, we're on Spotify now. Y'all can go. This episode's gonna be on there tomorrow, and y'all can go check that out. But yeah, we got to give love to the audio listeners out there because I know a lot of people don't watch videos and they listen to that audio. So we got you now. So, and we're gonna be working on trying to get on iHeartRadio too. So we got to definitely do that for sure.
One step at a time, but Spotify's a good step in the right direction.
Yes, sir. But hey, before we go, is there anything you got going on and everything that you want
to? Not yet, but I'm looking forward to next week's show. Hopefully, we'll more content to talk about. Once we get to that 2-month period where there ain't much to talk about, we'll figure it out.
Absolutely, but y'all can check us out at our ads. Go follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and just so we'll figure out what day we're exactly going to be. We're just trying to figure out our schedules, but it's about between the Thursdays or Sundays. But we're gonna have some more episodes
for y'all.
There. Yeah, we'll get there where we're gonna have that right day. But we'll definitely keep y'all in tune. But this has been Tacos and Touchdown Live. Y'all have a good one.
Taco Thursday.